Have you ever wondered why, no matter how many self-love affirmations you say or how much healing and inner work you do, you still struggle with self-worth? What if your issues with self-worth aren't because you're not healing enough, but because you've been trying to heal the wrong wound? What if everything you've been taught about self-worth in your manifestation practice, your therapy sessions, that self-help book, was built on a false premise? Because the reason you still feel like you're not good enough or worthy of what you want, deep down, even after all the healing, isn't because you're broken or blocked. It's because you've been trying to solve the wrong problem. We've been told self-worth is about believing we're lovable, that we're deserving, that we matter. And while that sounds nice, those beliefs have to be affirmed over and over. And yet people still people please and overextend and seek external validation and don't feel like they are enough as they are. And that's because those affirmations, when you say them to yourself or even to your inner child repeatedly, you're lovable, you're enough, you matter, it doesn't really land in your body, in your nervous system, not in the core places that still feel empty, not in the core parts of you that keep trying to earn love and prove your value or perform to be seen. So in this episode, I'm going to offer a radically different lens on self-worth, one that literally changes everything. I've had revelatory breakthroughs about self-worth in the past few months that liberated me in the most healing and transcendent ways and resonated with deep, profound, forgotten truths when they surfaced in me. And now, having metabolized everything that I now understand about what true self-worth is, all the efforting, conscious and the subconscious, has ceased because I deeply and truly understand my worth, not in some generic, I'm lovable way, or I deserve what I want because I exist way, but in a coherent, complete, and precise way. Because self-worth is not about your identity. It's not about who you are or what you've achieved. It's not even about learning how to perceive. It's actually about what you believe you have to give. Self-worth is rooted in the energetic imprint you absorbed in your earliest relationships that taught you whether or not unconditional love was a constant and that your love was valuable, meaning whether or not the love that you possess is enough to make someone stay, respond, or see you in their presence. Welcome to The Simple Source, a paradigm-shifting space where self-love, healing, spirituality, and personal growth are redefined. If you've been told healing takes years, that abundance must be attracted, or that transformation requires struggle, you haven't been told the truth. I'm Linda Valines, a certified trauma-informed holistic coach, author, and spiritual guide. After healing myself from chronic conditions, complex trauma, and lack, not by following traditional frameworks, but by creating my own, I'm now teaching you to love, heal, and free yourself, mind, body, and soul, so you can reclaim your highest health, happiness, and potential with joy and ease. Each week, we go beyond surface-level self-help and into the real mechanics of transformation. If the traditional paths to healing and spirituality haven't produced the changes you want in the life you desire, you're in the right place. You were never meant to struggle or wait for what is already yours. Let's get started with today's episode. Now, here's the truth. Self-worth wounds are not rooted in a lack or dysfunction of receiving. They are not about you believing that you are not good enough to receive what you want. The truth is, self-worth wounds are actually rooted in a disconnection from authentic giving, true soul-level giving, the kind that arises when you know you are full of love because you are loved safely, consistently, and unconditionally. That's the truth about self-worth that I'm going to explain in this episode. I am going to radically reframe self-worth from the ground up, spiritually, energetically, developmentally, relationally, because it has been misunderstood for way, way too long, as made evident by the fact that even the most intelligent, successful, and self-aware people still secretly carry the weight of not feeling good enough, and also made evident by the vast amounts of people who have been healing for years and years and still contend with subconscious self-worth wounds. Despite all the healing, despite all the achievements, despite all the efforting. But before I unpack the revelation and the understanding that does change the entire normalized concept of self-worth, I'll just give you a little itsy bitsy peek into how this revelation came to me, this breakthrough and this highest truth came into my existence, because it was a series of divine and massive revelations and breakthroughs. So initially, I was watching The Wild Robot, that recent and fantastic, by the way, animated film. And in the beginning, like in the very beginning of that movie, if you've seen it, the robot is looking for something to connect with. And I just had this wave of realization hit me so strong. Like it left me stunned and just immediately brought me to tears with the truth of it. What hit me is that the loneliness and the emotional abandonment that shaped my early childhood didn't just cause pain and trauma. They created the foundation of the subconscious scarcity programming that I was operating from and contending with like my whole life. And not just scarcity of money or opportunity, but of love, of connection, of abundance, of worth. And for the first time, I saw and I understood it clearly. One, I had internalized the belief that I was not connected to unconditional love because of how my parents treated me, raised me, related with me. I had internalized the belief that love is scarce, unsafe, conditional. And two, this is the revelation part. Because of that, I lived most of my life subconsciously believing that I had nothing truly valuable to give because I was not connected to love. I did not receive love, which meant then I did not possess love, and then was thus not full of love. And that realization led me into some of the most profound, the deepest emotional inner child and trauma healing I have ever done, because nobody talks about that. When I took that into my healing, it was just like a click, something deep unlocked. And again, the healing was profound is not even the right word for it. I mean, because 40 plus years I've been carrying this wound. And then a couple of days after that, the second half of the truth about self-worth was downloaded to me. Just going about my morning, and then like, bam, it just like came into my mind. And it was that I have always been connected to unconditional love. And so that meant that I've always had pure unconditional love to give. And then I felt it then, like I felt it. And I may even start crying now because it was so deeply distinct and somatically clear to me, my self-worth, my true and core self-worth. I'd never felt it before, honestly. And in comparison to what I felt then, like the truth of it. And I have been on a healing journey, friend, for nearly 15 years. It's a long fucking time. And I am an expert in healing. This is my expertise. This is what I teach. And I have dug deep into trauma healing. And yes, of course, self-worth. And I have never had it click that way somatically in my body after I had that revelation, which is, I have love to give. And of course, yes, I'm getting emotional about it again because it was so profound. And it's beautiful. And it's simplicity that I never felt that. And it also became clear to me that love that I have to give is expressed in everything that I offer, like as my offering, because what you put out is your offering. That is what you give to the world. So that love is in my work. It's in my words. It's in my energy. It's in my relationships. It's in the way that I move. It is my offering. It's my worth, the value that I have to give. And then that's when it truly hit me. That is what self-worth is, not some concept of being enough or lovable or deserving. And that realization and that revelation changed everything. I mean, like everything. I had a massive emotional release and reclamation in my entire mind, body, soul, energy shifted from it. It literally changed everything about how I perceived myself and my value and what I offer to the world, my true sense of worth. So here's what I ultimately understood from those initial revelations. Self-worth is actually a form of abundance experienced relationally through energetic exchange. And what is being exchanged energetically is love. And not just any type of love, but unconditional love. Because abundance is an extension of source, and source is unconditional love. And source creates from unconditional love. And it sustains its creations through unconditional love. So when I formed the wounded belief in my earliest years in infancy that I was cut off or disconnected from unconditional love, then of course I was also cut off from abundance. That's the root of the subconscious scarcity programming. I, and many people, I was trying to quote unquote manifest abundance from a place of internal emptiness and loneliness. Because from the start, in my earliest years in infancy, I didn't feel connected to unconditional love. And so I didn't feel like I had love, like I had then possessed love or was then full of love. Therefore, I believed that I didn't have anything valuable to give because I was lacking love. I believed that I was fundamentally empty and alone and therefore unable to give because I had nothing of value to give, and therefore innately unable to truly receive because you must give in order to receive because you have to have space to receive in the first place. And the truth is, this was another revelation, the truth is, giving and receiving are simultaneous exchanges. They happen at the same time. One does not come before the other. They're actually the same thing perceived through polarity. So what I realized is that my entire energetic exchange was disrupted and distorted from the start. So let me put it another way. When you feel full because you feel deeply connected to safe, pure, unconditional love, then you believe you have pure, unconditional love to give. You believe then that you have true value. That means you can give freely, not only because you are connected to and full of love, but because you know that what you have to give is truly valuable. There's no withholding. There's no fear of lack. There's no trying to fill a perceived emptiness. And that means then that you are always then open to receive. That's a healthy, unobstructed, energetic exchange of love, which is what abundance is. So I'm going to do an entire episode actually about abundance because I had a really tremendous, life-altering revelation about that too. The truth of what abundance is. That's also paradigm shifting and wholly liberating. And no one talks about it in this way, but we're not there yet. But anyways, but that's on deck. So now you know. But anyway, so I had those downloads about the root of my scarcity programming and the relational energetic exchanges, giving and receiving wounds. And I put it all together and I finally understood the root of self-worth and how it forms. Then literally my entire relationship to everything in my existence changed because the real reason I continue to experience quote unquote lack in my life, when I say experience, is because our reality is just a mirror of us. And my reality was just mirroring my self-worth back to me. So that quote unquote lack was not a result of an inability to quote unquote manifest or change my reality. It was because my reality was mirroring to me that I didn't believe I had anything truly valuable to give. And so I was not receiving what I wanted. Here is the truth. Self-worth is the value of the love you feel you have to give. Self-worth is about giving, not receiving, because you can't give what you don't believe you have. So I'm going to explain all of this in depth throughout the episode, but let's just start with how self-worth has been misunderstood, okay? Self-worth has been long misunderstood because it's been reduced to abstract and subjective concepts like lovability, enoughness, or deservingness, right? Those concepts are totally valid on their own, but in relation to self-worth, they reflect actually a very surface level adult perspective. That's key. One that superimposes adult concepts onto something that was never originally cognitive or conceptual even, but rather deeply energetic, relational, and experiential. So mainstream psychology tends to define self-worth as the degree to which a person feels they are lovable, capable, or deserving of good things. It's often treated as a cognitive belief system that can be reshaped through tools like affirmations and talk therapy, mindset, self-love, inner child work, subconscious healing, etc. Now, while those practices are, of course, helpful, in general, but if you don't understand the root problem, then those practices just remain surface level regulation because they miss the deeper truth, which is that self-worth was not formed as a belief. It was formed as an energetic imprint through relational exchange. So the shortcoming of traditional psychological self-worth frameworks and definitions is they assume an infant has a sense of self to begin with. Like we have an identity to deem lovable or enough as a newborn. That's why the traditional definition of model doesn't actually make sense when you understand the core of self-worth forms before our conscious minds and identities take shape. So through a holistic lens, like integrating attachment theory, neuroscience, and developmental psychology, a child's sense of self-worth is formed not cognitively, but relationally through the energetic and emotional feedback they receive in their earliest caregiving experiences. That means in the first year of your life, before language, before identity, before self-concept, you as an infant learned about yourself and the world through relational energy and exchanges. And your brain and your nervous system wired according to the consistency and the quality of the love you received, because that's like paramount. So if your primary caregiver provided safe and present and attuned, unconditional love on a consistent basis, then you as an infant not only felt loved, but you felt connected because your core emotional and psychological needs were met. And from that state of feeling loved and connected, a deeper truth was imprinted. A relational truth was imprinted. A deeper truth was imprinted. I am full because I am not lacking. I am not searching. I am met. I am sated. And that fullness becomes the foundation of your ability to give love in return through your presence, through your cries, your reaching, your behavior as an infant. And because your love is met with more love and connection, the innate and constant energetic relational exchange is established healthfully, and you feel whole in it, safe in it. That's the original blueprint of self-worth. I receive unconditional love freely and safely. I am full of love. And now I have love to give, and that love is received. So your self-worth isn't an idea or an identity. It's an energetic truth embedded through an inherent and constant relational exchange of love and perception of safety. So that's the true formation of healthy self-worth, the belief that what I have to give is valuable because I am full and my love creates connection. Now, on the flip side, if you as an infant experienced inconsistency, if love was conditional, absent, or delivered through a dysregulated or emotionally immature primary caregiver, then the energetic relational exchange imprint reverses because your core needs were not met. And not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. So then, of course, you felt a gap in connection, and that gap created an embodied sense of emptiness. That emptiness then became your emotional baseline, because then you learned love is not reliable. Love is not safe. Love is not given consistently. Love is not always present. Then that means I do not have love. And then when you try to give through your crying, your reaching, your presence as an infant, your behavior as an infant, and your love was then not consistently received because of that dysregulated or emotionally immature primary caregiver that was unable to meet your core needs, that created a devastating subconscious conclusion. If I'm not connected to pure love, then I am not being filled by pure love. Then I don't have pure love to give. That's the true origin of scarcity, not just in money or relationships, but in the primal sense of value. That absence of safe love becomes the absence of perceived worth. The child then organizes their being not around fullness and healthy energetic exchange or flow, but around lack and survival, because that inherent foundational energetic exchange was distorted and dysfunctional. And so then what was meant to be a natural, abundant flow of giving and receiving then becomes a lifelong pattern of seeking and efforting. So while most self-worth teachings focus on affirming identity, the truth of self-worth is that it is relational. It's built not by declaring I am enough, but from feeling from our earliest moments that what we have to give is valuable and naturally creates connection. That's the root of self-worth. And unless you recognize that root and you heal it at that true root, you're just going to continue to layer like positive beliefs on top of an empty well. That's what I understood through my revelatory downloads and breakthroughs. Self-worth originates from the perceived value of the love we have to give in order to stay connected to love. Self-worth is not a belief. It's not a belief you learned. It's an energetic imprint that was formed in your earliest years of life through relational experiences and exchanges. It's not based on who you are, but based on what you believe you had to give in order to survive emotionally. Because as an infant, identity is not yet formed. Like the concept of I am lovable or I am enough just doesn't exist. What does exist is a relational exchange, is a relational presence and awareness, is a desire for love. What did exist was a subconscious energetic equation. If I give love, will I receive love in return? And so your self-worth, which is your felt, not cognitive sense of value, was constructed not around your identity, but around your perceived capacity to give, and more importantly, the value of what you believed you had to give. If your earliest emotional and relational environment was marked by conditional love, by inconsistency, abandonment, or emotional neglect, then you were taught indirectly, what I have to give is not enough. I have to earn love through my behavior, through pleasing, through performing, perfecting. I don't have love to give because I've never felt truly full of it. And that's how the original giving wound forms, which this is another paradigm shifting aspect of my revelation. Self-worth wounds are not receiving wounds. They are giving wounds. We've been taught, right, to heal our self-worth by trying to heal how we receive love, right? Receive affirmation, validation, abundance. But if you do not believe that you have anything valuable to give, then receiving will always feel unsafe and uncomfortable. So again, self-worth is the value you deem the love you have to give. It's based in your perception of giving, not in your ability to receive or your identity. That's why my understanding and my framework completely redefines the entire self-worth conversation, because it grounds self-worth in energetic reality, not conceptual identity. Because at the most foundational level, here's the truth, you are an extension of Source, and Source is unconditional love. Unconditional love is the force behind all creation. Therefore, your ability to give love is your creative power. That's your creative force. That's you acting as source because you are source. And so that is your true value. That means if you were conditioned to believe that you don't have love to give because you were not provided it consistently, unconditionally, safely, then of course you internalize the belief that you are valueless. That's actually the core rupture of self-worth, not a lack of a deserving, lovable identity. It's a perceived lack of true energetic offering, because that is how the universe works. I mean, that was when Source created its first emanation, it was an act of love. So when you are disconnected from that very foundational, intrinsic blueprint of creation itself that is within you right now, of course, your own sense of value is distorted. So let's unpack why my definition, my understanding, my framework of self-worth is truly valid beyond my own revelation, my own personal experience. So firstly, my definition of self-worth is not based on an identity concept. Most psychological models, again, try to build self-worth through identity. You're enough, you're lovable, you matter. But for someone whose core imprint says, I don't have love to give, those words really just fall flat because the original imprint wasn't formed around self-identity. It was formed around energetic relational exchange. You can't reprogram a nervous system imprint with a cognitive concept. You have to meet the wound where it lives in the energetic body, in the relational imprint, blueprint, and the subconscious perception of value as exchange. So that's why people can do years of inner child work, talk therapy, say self-worth affirmations ad nauseum, and still not feel worthy. Because in infancy, which is ages 0 to 2, again, the self is not an I yet. There's no ego. So that means that there's no cognitive processing of, am I worthy? Am I lovable? There's only felt experience. And so an infant does not think in terms of lovability or being enough. It perceives presence, attunement or lack of attunement, safety or lack of safety, and resonance as signals of connection or disconnection. And an infant innately knows that giving and receiving are how energy moves because that's foundational to relational exchanges. Energetic exchanges happen long before the conscious mind or identity structures emerge. That's why my core definition of self-worth, right, my value is what I have to give, is not only accurate in its pathology, but it's actually entirely logical, right? Because it takes into account the pre-verbal, pre-ego experience of relational survival. Self-worth is not identity, friend. It is the value of the self, and the value is formed through the lens of energetic exchange, not identity. That's why people try to heal self-worth by affirming their identity as lovable or actually bypassing the root. The root is not who you are. It's what you believed you had or did not have to give in order to receive love and connection and safety. And that's why you can't feel your worth with specificity in your body even after intellectually understanding it. Like until you had that moment that I had, which I got emotional describing to you because I really felt it in my body. It wasn't just an intellectual understanding of I'm lovable. No, when it clicked, I felt it. And that's when I knew it was true. Self-worth is not something that you have to prove. It's not something you affirm. It's not something you quote unquote attract. It's a direct byproduct of how connected you feel to the love you have to give. And that lives in your body. That's why you may hear my definition and you may feel like disconnected from it, not because it's not true, because it is, but because your system has never learned how to feel full. Like it's not in your body. Because when early relational scarcity like abandonment, lack of healthy attunement, and unsafe or conditional love imprints into your nervous system, the default wiring established is like a feeling of I am empty. I must seek then love, safety, connection. And that survival state prevents you from ever truly feeling full of love, like in your body, not just intellectually. Feeling that love in your body, feeling it all around you. And so the wiring for fullness was never actually laid down. And that doesn't mean that it's not your truth. It just means that your nervous system has never safely and consistently experienced that level of energetic saturation of love. So basically, your system was never really shown what being full of safe, unconditional love feels like. And that's the healing. Now you may be thinking, all right, so I only have worth if I give. Bet you may be thinking that. So let's address that right now and make this very clear. My redefinition and my framework of self-worth actually restores the truth of your inherent worth. So let's make this distinction crystal clear. So the mainstream belief is you're inherently worthy because you exist. I'm not saying that's not true. My reframe takes something general like that and conceptual like that and grounds it in human experience and spiritual truth. You are inherently worthy because you are an extension of unconditional love, period, full stop. You are also unconditional love, like you are love, which means you always have love to give, to generate creative power with, which is what that really truly means. But your awareness of that fact, which is your self-worth, comes from recognizing your capacity to give love from that source. So I'm not saying that you must give to be worthy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not redefining worthiness. I'm redefining self-worth. I'm saying that when you recognize the love that you are and that you were always unconditionally loved by your highest self, by the universe, by your field, by source, you are thus connected to and receiving that love all the time. That means you're full of it. So that then means that you have that love to give. Remembering that then restores the flow, the health of the energetic exchanges that you are constantly, consciously, and unconsciously participating in. Energetic exchange is the nature of reality. You're doing it anyways. You're giving anyways. So your self-worth is your giving that becomes the evidence of your inherent and constant connection to source. It's not the condition for it. You don't have to do anything to be worthy, but the awareness and the determination of your self-worth gets restored when you realize that you have something deeply valuable to offer. Not because you earned it, but because it's just your inherent nature. You are unconditional love itself, and thus you have valuable, pure love to give. That is self-worth. So I'm not saying that you are not inherently worthy because you exist. I'm reframing how we understand and employ self-worth because it's formed in early attachment, and attachment wounds are not just psychological, they're spiritual. They create the illusion of being disconnected from the source of love itself. When an infant doesn't feel consistently met with warmth and unconditional love and presence, they don't just feel unloved, they feel cut off from love. And that creates A, a receiving wound, which is I don't know how to feel safe receiving love because it's unpredictable. And B, it creates a giving wound, right? I have no love to give. I'm empty. I'm a burden. I have to perform now to earn it. And so in attachment terms, that's connected to anxious attachment, right? When you overgive, over effort to maintain connection. It's connected to avoidant attachment when you withhold or self-protect due to a belief that connection is unsafe. And it's also connected to disorganized attachment, which is the internal collapse of trust in both giving and receiving. And what all of that has in common is just the dysregulation of the foundational and inherent energetic exchange. What we all constantly participate in all day long, giving and receiving and giving. We're doing it all day long. That's inherent to existence. And so that dysregulation then manifests as wounded receiving and wounded giving, because you're not receiving in trust and confidence, and you're not giving with trust or confidence. Giving then becomes seeking and a compensation strategy built from a subconscious belief in your emptiness. And it becomes performative, right? And that's what people-pleasing is: overachieving, approval-seeking, sacrificing yourself, abandoning yourself to be needed. That type of giving is not rooted in abundance, but fear and scarcity and survival. It's energetic extraction masquerading as generosity. That's why it leaves you exhausted and resentful and still feeling not enough. Because true giving is an act of self-fullness. It is the organic overflow of being connected to unconditional love within yourself and around you. Because when you know that, on not an intellectual level, but an embodied, right? You feel that you have love to give, then you experience your own value. And that's when giving becomes trustworthy and confident and effortless. And then, of course, naturally becomes receiving. Most people are confused about self-worth because they have never felt their own love as valuable. And that's what broke me down when I had that initial revelation. That feeling, I realized I had never felt that before. And it's monumental to feel that. People confuse self-worth with performance, with contribution, with an ability to receive. But true giving, which is what self-worth is actually a reflection of inner fullness because of complete connection and trust and love. It's not a bid for validation. And that's why true giving, when someone has restored their self-worth and reconnected to their value and the love that they have to give, the love that they are, then abundance or receiving also becomes effortless. So let's quickly talk about the self-worth and abundance connection specifically, because it's so often brought up in quote-unquote manifestation teachings. So let me provide a little more accurate depiction of what's actually happening. Everything is energy, right? We've all heard that ad nauseum. And all energy moves through exchange. There's no such thing as motionless energy, because energy vibrates, which means it moves. And in that movement, there is an inherent exchange between connected adjacent energy, because there's no such thing as a vacuum. There's no modicum particle, subparticle of energy in a vacuum by itself. That does not exist. So energetic exchange is a constant. It's intrinsic to existence. So when you experience lack of abundance or scarcity, it's not the absence of material. You're just living out of the imprint of a distorted energetic exchange that was again formed in your infancy relationally. And because everything is energy, and energy is in constant exchange and movement with other energy, that's why self-worth is mirrored in your material abundance or perceived lack of. Does that make sense? That includes money, that includes opportunities, relationships, creativity, all of it is abundance. So when your self-worth was compromised in infancy due to the conditions that I have explained, then foundational scarcity wounds also form. That's the loneliness wound, right? The I don't have enough connection, the abandonment wound of there's not enough presence and support and love. So that all imprints to your nervous system narratives that life is an empty exchange. I give, but I do not receive. I'm empty. I'm alone. I'm unsupported. So then when you try to quote unquote manifest abundance without healing the original disruption of your energetic exchange blueprint, meaning your true self-worth, as I have defined it, your system doesn't know how to receive from a place of fullness or safety or trust because it never believed it had anything of value to give in the first place. which inherently disrupts the flow of that energetic exchange. That's why manifestation and self-worth teachings and frameworks fail to create true lasting change. And so many people, myself included, right? Spending years trying to quote unquote raise my self-worth in order to quote unquote manifest, and then just remained in the same reality. It's because those teachings and those frameworks address the symptom, which is receiving, without actually healing the root, which is giving from emptiness. So self-worth is not something that you raise or build. It's something you reclaim by returning to your innate truth, which is that you have love to give, and that love is valuable because you are always connected to source, to all of love, and you carry that energy within you all the time, which means you are always full. So reclaiming that core energetic truth supersedes all cognitive bypassing or those surface level reorganization practices, because it meets the wound where it was formed, at the original self, before identity existed, and through relational truths that are the basis of existence itself. So now I hope that you fully understand self-worth with my redefinition and truly understand how deeply resonant with not only our human truth, but our spiritual truth. So now let's talk about healing self-worth and reconnecting to the love that you do have to give. So reclaiming your self-worth, again, is not about those affirmations and those practices, but it's about healing all the parts of yourself that do not know and feel that you have love to give. And most importantly, that love is valuable. And so that primarily entails reparenting your inner child, your infant child, where the original wound was formed, giving them what they needed to feel and believe that, and then holistically reclaiming that for your adult self, meaning your whole self. So that's it, and that's going to be different for everybody. My infancy was not the same as your infancy, but that's really what it entails. It's not that complicated. Healing is not complicated. I say that a lot, and people don't like it because people want it to be hard. People defend struggle. But healing is actually simple when you know what to heal and how to heal. And that's what I'm sharing with you throughout this podcast. I actually did a whole episode about productive inner child work that I recommend you listen to if you haven't not yet. So really, essentially, healing self-worth is just healing your connection to safe, consistent, unconditional love. It's healing your somatic felt experience of being full of love. And then you can restore and reactivate that blueprint of that foundational energetic exchange. Because when you believe the love within you is sacred, is meaningful, is always present and true, you become energetically full. And then giving then becomes so genuine. You're giving anyways. But how you give energetically, which is fundamentally the most important, is then real and true. It's not seeking. And in that genuine giving, you automatically then receive genuinely, because you have not withheld out of fear or a perception of lack. And because now you have true energetic space. And because you're also no longer searching from a place of scarcity. And that's the full circle healing, because scarcity is the imprint of I have nothing to give that is valuable. And self-worth is the knowing that I have love to give, and that love is enough and valuable. So just a real quick summary. In normalized psychology, right, self-worth is about believing that you're lovable, that you're enough, that you're worthy of receiving. It promotes the belief that it was formed and built cognitively through self-concept, and that you heal it by affirming your identity, your innate worthiness through lovability and enoughness. And normalized psychology teaches that worthiness is about receiving. However, I am certain that all of that is actually wrong, because self-worth is not who you are. It's what you believe you have to give, because Our sense of personal worth was not formed in ego, but formed in relational exchanges, our earliest relational exchanges, and to be specific, the energetic exchange of love. And so your true value is the love that you have to give, which is sourced from your connection, your always present connection to unconditional love, which is source itself, which is you. So self-worth wounds are not receiving wounds, they're giving wounds. And scarcity is the first emotional and relational, not material, imprint when you believe that you're empty and have nothing to give. And healing self-worth firstly requires reuniting with the truth that you have love to give because you are love. That's going to the origin. And only then can you reclaim your whole truth, your innate truth, your ever-present truth, which is that you have love to give, and that love is valuable, and you are connected to the source of all of that love, and you carry that love within you all the time, which means you are always full. You know, my self-worth revelation isn't just a redefinition. I know it's like a complete reorientation. And so I hope this episode has explained it. I hope it has resonated with you on a core level. And I hope that you embrace this remembrance so that you are liberated from seeking, from emptiness, from perceived scarcity, from perceived low self-worth, and all those beliefs and behaviors like people-pleasing and avoidance and overgiving that are associated with the rupture of that foundational energetic exchange. Self-worth is your central energetic truth, and I have fully reattuned it to include real relational attunement and also spiritual and source connection. You know, we're not just a mind and a body. So then it means that what I've offered really does dissolve the illusion that you ever needed to become worthy or to raise your self-worth. You only need to remember that you are love and that you have pure, valuable love to give all the time. So here's your action step for the week. Think of one relationship, past or present, where you felt like your love, your presence didn't land, where you felt like you weren't received or mirrored or valued in the way that you wanted. Now, instead of perceiving it through the lens of why wasn't I enough, I want you to ask yourself, what did I believe I had to give in that moment? And what response was I unconsciously trying to earn with that? Like, meaning, were you offering from fullness or from a subtle hope that that time you were giving would make you feel safe, lovable, connected? So write down the answer to that and allow yourself to really be with that in unconditional self-love and curiosity and also clarity, because that's where your sense of self-worth still depends on being received instead of being sourced from your own fullness. Because the moment that you start honoring what you genuinely have to give, not prove, but express and create as pure unconditional love itself, you begin to rewire your internal relationship with worth at its root. And then you're going to know that there's nothing ever lacking. Nothing is ever missing. You're always loved. You are love, and you have pure, beautiful love to give. And trust me, that is a liberation, to give that love freely, to know that that love is valuable because it is sourced, not just within you, but because you know that you are source. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope this episode awakened you, inspired you, and reminded you of what's possible when you love, heal, and free yourself and reclaim your highest truth and power. If this show has transformed or enlightened your self-love, growth, and healing journey, please like, save, and share this episode and leave a positive review on Apple or Spotify. And subscribe to be reminded of new episodes. Your support is deeply appreciated and truly helps this show so much. And if today's episode resonated with you, don't stop here. Go deeper. My book, Unconditional, You Are Perfect As You Are, expands on these teachings and gives you the missing framework about self-love that no one is talking about. So get your copy today to start reading and loving yourself more. And if you're ready for the ultimate healing journey with daily instruction and guidance from me, I'd love to see you inside the Source membership, the only holistic and comprehensive step-by-step self-healing program that is proven to work. Remember, you were never meant to struggle or wait for what is already yours. It's time to claim everything you want and more. All the links are in the show notes. I'll see you next time.